Hello my friends, and welcome to T12 Electronic channel. This is Uncle Misha, and today we have something interesting which arrived, and this is a soldering iron. I hope you see through this little baggie. And I wanted to find an alternative to my wire soldering iron, which actually power up with mains. I want to find a solution where I can have a soldering iron being powered off battery. So I was looking for some of the known subjects, which are I think they call TS100 and TS80, and they were too expensive for my liking. And all of a sudden I found this on eBay, and I paid for it, I think, like $14. So substantially cheaper. Maybe it's substantially crappier, so let's find together. So first of all, of course, we have to unbox this guy, and it's like just using here some tape. Anti-static bag for soldering iron, of course, very important. And also it just sealed with a tape. Nothing too fancy, and that's what we have. Come out, I want this. So, but the biggest downside of those soldering iron I mentioned, they were not using T12 or T15 type of cartridges. It's a big deal because I have several soldering irons with this sort of cartridges. First of all, let's make them quite a bit more universal. See, this is almost identical, and I like the cartridges a lot, and also I have quite a lot of them. If I use some kind of a proprietary other cartridges, that's gonna be not as convenient, because I would have to buy those proprietary and create a selection of them. So now I have quite a selection of these, and I would like to stick to them. So this is our soldering iron. This is how it is. So this soldering iron all in one. So there is a, as you see, it's actually transparent, which is actually pretty cool. I don't even have to do teardown. You can see everything through this thing, right? And there is a button here, some sort of, is it a button? It's a joystick. It's not just button. Press and a joystick. It's amazing. There is a barrel jack connection, 5mm, and this end is a work end. As you see through everything here, you see the connectors. So I can just don't have to use this one. I don't know if this is genuine hakko, because I have mixture of all of them. This is how nicely it goes in, you see, and I don't even have to tear down because you can see everything. Amazing. And this goes here, and here we are. So this is the soldering iron. I would say this is a little bit too big for my liking. Again, if you compare to this pan, it's the lengthwise is pretty much the same, but the difference that this strain relief is flexible. It's another probably 3 centimeters, or even almost 3.5-4 centimeters, kind of smaller. This one feels bulky, because then you're gonna have the wire coming out of here as well. So yeah, but for portable jobs, that I think gonna be okay. Also curious what's information going to be on this display. Also curious, kind of microcontroller is here. 2 chips actually totally can see what they say, but microcontroller is actually painted over, which sort of which just sucks. So curious how easy it is to take it apart. Probably easy. I assume it's as easy as what I'm just doing right now. Exactly. Unless that part is glued, maybe. Let me pick something helpful. So of course we're not gonna turn it on before we take it apart. What would be fun in this, right? It's not cooperating. It's clearly not glued because I can shift one against part against another. So yeah, they are shifting. So they are probably just there are two latches right here. I just don't want to break it because this polycarbonate is quite, it's not brittle, but it's, yeah. No, I don't want to use metal. I don't want to scratch it because it's actually nice looking. No, it's not cooperating. I'll take it off camera at the moment and try to figure this. Okay, so after poking for a while, I was able to actually open it up without, not without damage, a little bit damage. So what I've done when it was like this together, I actually shifted one against another like that as much as I could. In the same time, I was leveraging it here, so, and it popped. So you have to shift it like this, and then it's gonna, and simultaneously pull it apart. So shift like this, pull it apart, and help yourself with something like that, or plastic or metal. In this case I use metal, maybe I should use plastic. But here we are inside. As you see, someone was very determined to scrape all information from this microcontroller right here. Okay, those two chips, one of them is LN358 is op amp, and what is this guy for 485? Not sure, because some chips I know off the top of my head, some do not. So there is a little sticky pod over here, which another obstacle to get it out. Wow, what else? What else? Hope this thing isn't okay. This side is not okay. That's easy as that. Alrighty. So under OLED screen there is nothing really. Okay, there is some passives mostly. Okay, there are diodes over here. Two diodes. One, not sure, is voltage regulator or transistor. Okay, I'll zoom in. So here are a microcontroller. Okay, so this is part of the voltage regulation circuitry. Over here we have operation amplifier, probably for thermocoupling. A few transistors, probably switching on and switching transistors on and off. We have a little tiny LED right here, probably going to be illuminating everything from inside, which is kind of cool when the thing is in operation. Also we have a sensor here, tilt sensor, which actually going to indicate that the soldering iron is in use or not, which is really good. Again, our joystick, which is pretty cool. So much better than just a button. Then we have this microcontroller, which I try to distinguish what the heck it says, but I'm not sure if this is painted over or it's, yeah, it is scraped. Damn. Yeah, that's unfortunate. Well, I'm highly likely this is some sort of ST microcontroller. There is no any sort of serial connection and things like that, so I would assume it is hackable, but not easily hackable. So we have to take a look what's, you know, maybe someone already done some reverse engineering of this thing. I actually haven't seen any soldering iron like this, like all in one, like this, pretty much a single unit. Okay, so again, I will try to make out something, you know, under the microscope or quite some substantial magnification, and I'll be back. Wow, turned out to be put it together was not as well. It's actually quite a bit hard. This thing was actually required a lot of force to latch it, to clasp it back together. Anyways, okay, so I have no idea what is this microcontroller. I took some photos and then we're gonna take a look closer. Maybe it's already available somewhere on the internet. So let's screw this little cap back on and let's do some experiments, okay? Alright guys, so I have attached barrel connector to this power supply. Also on this side, I have used, on the power supply side, I've used those banana plugs. I just not solder, they are twist connected, so I want to reuse them for something else. But for now, they are connected to this 10 mAh power supply, which is can do 30 volt, 5 amp. It's just right over there. Okay. let's power it up. I'm gonna use 12 volt first. So it's already set to 12 volt. Current limit is, I think, 5 amp or something to this extent. Way more than this thing can do. Okay, immediately when this thing is powered, it started I think heating. It is set right now to 276. I think it was just, is it some random number or it was preset? But the funny thing is, I'm not sure, is it heating up? It's actually getting warm, but doesn't say, it says power. I don't know what that really supposed to mean, this power. Is it? It's 4.6 amp. Is it not enough power, or what's going on with this guy? Error. As you see, this device is quite a bit wonky. So what now? Okay, it's heating up. As you see, it's 1.4 amp. It is heating up, but why it says error? Why it shows? Oh, maybe error means it cannot read temperature below certain value. Curious, what is that value? For example, it's interesting to know what's the minimum temperature this thing can be set. Okay. So clearly this device cannot read, first of all, it cannot set temperature lower than 180 C. Also, it cannot read temperature lower than 180 C, and I think that's why it displays error. So let's set it to 200. Oh, that's quite sure. Those are settings, by the way. Return. Let's do 200. 225. Sounds like good number. Okay, so now it's set to 225, and current temperature is wandering around this this value. So we are currently set to 12 volt. Let's do our sponge test and see how it's performed, how quickly it's gonna drop. So we're gonna monitor temperature. Oh, okay. Let's do this. We're gonna monitor temperature right here, and we're also gonna monitor current. You see error, so immediately error with temperature drop beyond 180. This is really annoying, by the way. Okay. I think this blue LED means it's actually heating up. It'll be nice to see actually red LED, not blue. Okay, so it managed to 225. Let's do higher temperature. Let's do 300. 300. 300. Okay. It's reaching relatively quickly, I would say. 300. Okay, it is at 300. Sponge test again. Error. Okay, it dropped beyond 180. Okay, obviously there is no point to keep it there because it's finally going up. Ugh, this is annoying. It's probably there is a setting somewhere there to switch it to longer timeout. 300. Good. Okay. So as you see, it's actually relatively okay at the 12 volt. My idea is, okay, let me shut it down. So my idea is at higher voltage. Okay, I should not have shut it down. I should switch it to higher voltage first. Let's do 17 volts and shut it down. 17 volts. It's gonna be doing better. So technically at 17 volts and for example the same 1.4 amp or 1.5 amp, the performance, the energy would be much higher, which this can heat up. So let's see. So okay, for some reason it reads, before it was 12 volt on the power supply, and then it was reading 13.8. Right now it is 17 volt at power supply, and this thing is reading 16.1. I'm not sure why it's all over the shop, but this is what's going on. So now it's pretty quickly reached 300, but it didn't have time to cool down. As you see, the current jumps around, let's see, around 1.9 amp. And then I kicked in the fan, internal fan. It's actually, I think it hits up quite a bit faster. It recovers. It recovers. Okay. It recovers, but it works. Okay. So seems to be doing okay. So my another idea is to use 24 volt, because this device is rated 24 volt, 24 volt, 24 volt. So technically at 24 volt it's supposed to perform even way better. Let's see. 24 volt. It reads 22.9. Okay, we have 24 volt, and let's see what's gonna happen when I'm gonna dunk it in this sponge. Do this sponge test. Oh wow, 2.7 amp current. That's intense. I'm not sure if this wire is gonna have. Yeah, it's actually 24 volt. It's doing really good. And as you see, current jumps all the way up to 2.9 amp. I think I just saw 2.9, 2.6 or something to this extent. 2.7. I just saw 2.7. At this 24 volt, I think this guy doing actually quite well. Yeah. So I do have several different 24 volt power supply, and I think I'm gonna MacGyver something, not to use my obviously bench power supply. I'm gonna use a dedicated power supply for this guy, or even maybe I MacGyver two 3-cell batteries to have 6-cell lithium polymer battery for that. You know, maybe. Oh, I start feeling warmth here. Not too bad, but oh yeah, I think it's doing well. At 24 volt, this is totally usable. I don't have a really good test to actually take like a big chunk of copper and try to smear some soldering. I don't have any kind of power transistors to desolder, unfortunately, any handy, but I think this is already better than some of the soldering I already reviewed, because it heats up very fast. It heats up very fast, and let's see, little piece of solder here. I won't be able to obviously melt it. Or maybe I would. It melted it a bit. That's a little piece of solder right there. It's actually it stuck to it. Anyways, it's actually doing good job. So at 24 volt, almost 3 amp, this guy is going. So 24 volt 3 amp, that's quite a bit of power. So this guy is rated to 72 watts, but it's 24 volt 3 amp, it's essentially 72 watts. So this thing is pretty capable in this regards. Obviously it is not as handy, because when you, let me zoom out. So it's big, so in comparison to, look, it's pretty big pencil in comparison to other pencils, because of the protruding barrel jack connector, and I think it's better to have this, not the angle one, but it's still pretty doable, but I think it's a little bit too tall. I would like to have it like this, without extra 4 centimeters of length. That will be good. But again, I can just remove all this, just solder 2 wires directly right here, and have it permanently soldered to it, and probably use better wires than this, not to have too much of a voltage drop at 3 amp at 24 volt, right? That's another good idea. So solder some better wires than that, and have some kind of connectors on the other side. You can connect to pretty much anything, including like a car battery, you know. Alright, so this is actually a good test, I think, with this water. Like, it's quite watery, still a lot of water here, so maybe it's even too much water, but I think, my opinion, this guy performs quite well. So I'm gonna shut it down, not to heat it up for that long, but at 24 volt it's doing pretty well, and 12 volt was still good. if you have some kind of 15, 16, 17, 18 volt power supply, DC power supply, they're still gonna be doing well, but at 24 volt I think it's doing actually pretty good. So what's my conclusion? I think the soldering iron is worth a shot, especially if you get it pretty cheap. So because this is all-in-one unit, if you have piece of like this sort of barrel connector, it's actually 5mm and I think 2mm, 2.5mm hole. Before higher currents, it's 2.5mm. This thing gonna work for you, especially if you have a set of a spare T12 tips from Hakko. I have a bunch of them, handful of them, so I think this contraption is useful, and it heats up pretty well. It has some programmer firmware. I'm pretty sure people can MacGyver, or already did MacGyver something for this guy, some better firmware. I still yet to figure out what is this microcontroller, but totally it looks to me like a ST Micro, some sort of microcontroller. It's really what it look like. I will do a little bit more research, maybe again someone already figured this out. I totally recommend this. I bought it pretty cheap on eBay, and I think this is gonna be my go-to soldering iron, because because I do have bench power supply always on the table, and many cases I'm not using it when I do a soldering. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna use it for this. So that means that I'm gonna have one less box on a workbench. And still gonna have my proper soldering iron handy, but just not right here on the bench, because sometimes when you're working with big devices, it's not enough place, at least in my case. If you have huge bench and you have like multiple layers and shelves and stuff like that, that's good for you, but not in my case. If you have limited space, this soldering iron, which can work, you can feed it from pretty much any power supply, is a savior. So this is my opinion. This is really good, tiny, all-in-one unit. So you just need power, DC power. If you have DC power, 12 to 24 volts, and your power supply is capable, it can be even PC power supply. You can use it in PC power supply, 12 volt, pretty high current, can handle it. That's really good. So guys, thank you for watching. I hope this was useful. Any high-res detail photos of this guy I will be posting on my website. And stay safe, be healthy, and take care. Ciao.